Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke, and I am so glad you're here. My new platform, well, a little over a year now, is kind of set in stone. My goal is to bring you the best of the best from our natural products industry and also some incredible voices from outside the industry. You know how I think. Everybody has something to share. Everyone has information and tips, and we can get beneficial ideas from everywhere. So why not bring everybody that has something to say onto the show? And that's what I do. Remember, if you like what I'm doing, make sure to go to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. The more subscriptions we get, the more I can pass these amazing interviews on, make them more visible. And of course, don't forget to follow me on all the other social media platforms. Today, you're going to love this. Longtime friend, amazing respect for this man. I just am a huge fan. Dan Chapman is with us today. Dan is the owner of the Sunrise Health Food Stores, founder and formulator of Red Remedies, a line I use and love very dearly, and author also of his new book, The Gout Lie. We're going to talk about a lot today. Stay tuned. Help me welcome my guest. Hey, Dan.
Hey, it's great to be here with you, Dr. Jeff.
Thank you
Always
so much.
Good.
It's so great to see you. I think what you're doing and what you have done and what you're planning on doing upcoming in the industry is amazing. And, you know, your track record, you have a family longevity in the industry as well. And I think all of that adds to a very, very strong passion. And we thank you for that.
Yeah, well, equal thanks back at you. I love every conversation with you.
Well, thank you so much. So where do we start? Let's give people a little bit of where you are these days. I mean, where are you spending most of your time? Where are you putting most of your focus?
So these days, spending most of my time, probably a lot like you, I am out and I'm talking and giving seminars. And the most recent topic, as you alluded to, is a book that I just wrote called The Gout Lie. This is not a new topic to me. I've been talking about gout for 2 decades now. Came out with an herbal formula to help people that are struggling with high uric acid 16 years ago now. And I did this book because I found that it is a category that is just misunderstood. So that's really where most of my time has been spent, is on this topic today, as well as supporting, our health food retailers around the country, which is always fun to do.
You know, you would think that with the amount of knowledge we have today, because I'm like you, you've been your whole life in this industry. I've got 46, almost 47 years in the industry. And of course, I started when I was 1. And I wish, I wish I could say that. But, we have much more information at our fingertips today. And you would think with that information, let's say on the topic of gout, that people would know what they should do, what they could do, what they need to do. And yet it still seems like there's almost like blinders on, and sometimes people really don't pay attention until they're really either in pain or discomfort.
Well, and that's just to your point. You'd think the information ought to be right there for us. It's part of the reason I call this book The Gout Lie. Is you can do a search on Google and you can ask it, what's the likelihood that my high uric acid levels are genetic? And you'll come up with a 73% likelihood that your high uric acid levels are connected with your genetics. And when I hear an answer like that, it basically tells me, it's like, well, I guess there's nothing I can do, right? It's just my genetics. So it's just the way the cards I was dealt. But when you dive into that information that Google gives us, you'll find that the studies that they're talking about were published in the 1940s to 1980s. So let's apply a little logic here. Genetics, and we're talking about well over 50 years ago. We knew nothing about genetics then. And, if you go a little bit deeper and you search a little bit further, you will find a study that doesn't come up from 2012 that for whatever reason they won't quote. And that says that the likelihood of your high uric acid is genetic is only maybe 6%. And so, the information isn't necessarily at our fingertips accurately the way that it should be. And so, just like you, I'm here to spread the truth and some real information because I want to empower people to take their health into their own hands.
And thank you for making that point. And I think it's very, very valid. You know, I guess if you look on the internet these days, you can find the answer you're looking for, and there's always one person that will agree with you, and those are the people that go, "See,
Right.
I told you," and the other 99 are going, "No." But I love the book. I've read it 3 times now, and I enjoyed it very, very much because it's a topic that comes up in my conversations, even though it may have anything that I'm doing with the conversation, but it still comes up.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot from this book, and I'm one of those people that I know I don't know it all, and every time I've tried to think that I do, I get proved very, very wrong very, very quickly. So thank you for this book. I think it is a wonderful way for people that have high uric acid, people that have gout, they have someone in their family that has gout, they know someone that does. This would be a great gift for them because they will walk away on the end of this book with knowledge that will actually change the course of their life.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And that's really the design of the book. This is not a textbook. It is not, designed for college level. This is designed for the average person, which is most of us that have a really, basic information or knowledge of the body. And when it comes to what in the world do I do with high uric acid and gout, this book is here to give you a good grasp of the body, what's happening, how uric acid builds up, as well as a very clear plan of how to alleviate that problem.
So if you were to tell people, let's say we're going to be doing Gout 101 today, is it more with men or women? Is it equally distributed? And is there an age that usually we start to see the symptoms or later symptoms of gout? Is it something we can get when we're younger, or is it older?
Yeah, it definitely skews towards men over women. It skews as we get older. So I would say around maybe age 40 or up. And it definitely skews for individuals that are maybe not in shape as much. And so people that are eating food that maybe not quite as healthy, consuming more alcohol than maybe other individuals are consuming. So that's how it skews. But having said that, I've met the 90-pound, vegan woman who gets gout, right? So you're going to have the complete opposite of that spectrum as well. And so that's part of just the way our bodies are designed and the way things work. And we can do things to help you no matter where you're at on that spectrum.
I was recommending your book to someone the other day, and she asked me a question, and I told her I would ask you. And her question is, and I know people think like this because we always want a temporary everything. She said, so if I follow, let's say, recommendations for a diet, and I do the things that are recommended, do I have to keep doing them forever? If I get it under control, do I get to slide back to who I was? Does it come back? Once you have gout, are you a gout person moving forward?
And that's a great question because probably the most frustrating question that I get from people is they say, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to with my diet. I've cut out the red meat. I'm not consuming alcohol. I'm like the whole list of things that I'm not doing. And yet they're still struggling. And so that's probably the main person that I talk to that just gets really frustrated. And, the truth is, while we are told that, when it comes to high uric acid and gout, you do need to change your diet. That's exactly what you need to do. You need to cut out the red meat, cut out the seafood, cut out the alcohol. And there's an element of truth in that. But when you look at the way that uric acid builds up in the body, only about 10% of the uric acid in your body comes from your diet. And that's why people can do everything they're supposed to and still struggle, because most of the uric acid in our body is actually produced in the body. It's produced as a part of our body's natural life cycle. And so, one of the things that I tell people is we don't really think about the life cycle of a cell, that every cell in our body has a life cycle, right? New cells are being created every day. Cells are dying every day. And our bodies are really efficient at recycling the components of everything. And so dead cells just don't leave the body whole. Your body breaks that down and recycles the pieces of the components to reuse again. And a part of that process of recycling a dead cell, if you will, or cellular debris is another way we might talk about it, is uric acid is produced in that process. And so we do need to pay attention to the diet. I'm not suggesting we don't need to, but most of what's happening is a function inside the body. And so I'm finally getting around to answer your question. So
No,
if
it's
we
all
can adjust diet temporarily to help,
Mhm.
and then we correct functions in the body, the fact is that we can go back to eating those foods. And I'm not saying go back to an unhealthy diet, but I believe that red meat's good for you. I think we need some meat. Like that to me is a part of a healthy diet. So I don't suggest that people have to eliminate that forever. As a matter of fact, if I look at diet, the number one thing that we do need to pay attention to is actually sugar. And that's the one thing that isn't talked about. Even table sugar is 50% fructose. And when we consume fructose, within 30 to 60 minutes, your uric acid levels will be elevated in the body, and they'll stay elevated for at least 12 hours. And so if you think about the amount of sugar and the frequency that we consume sugar, much less pure high fructose corn syrup, that's part of the reason, maybe the main reason, diet-wise, that people struggle with high uric acid levels.
Do the do the side effects or the effects of having a gout flare up vary from person to person in both where it affects them in the body as well as the severity?
Yeah, so generally that's pretty consistent. And again, this isn't a hard fact. There will be variations, but in most cases, it's going to impact you in your feet first, specifically the big toe. I mean, that's probably the most common symptom is a bright red inflamed big toe that hurts so bad, like even a light breeze seems to hurt. But it can also start in your fingers. And, when it gets bad, it can climb up the legs and kind of take over the whole foot. It can climb up the arms a little bit, but uric acid is not very soluble. So when we build up uric acid, it comes out of the bloodstream, goes into our joints, and it tends to go down. It's heavy, and that's why it goes in the feet or in the hands. So that's probably the main thing that people are going to see. But it's also really important to understand that actually about 1 out of 25 people, like 25% of us, have uric acid levels that are elevated, but only 3.9, like 4% of people ever get the symptom of gout. And so that's one of the other things, in the Gout Lie, as I say, uric acid levels are not just about getting gout. Like that's not the only thing that we need to be concerned about. If your levels are high, it is absolutely connected with the potential for cardiovascular health issues, is connected with metabolic syndrome. Like there are other things that can happen in your body that are also equally negative with high uric acid. It's not just gout, but historically, that's all we pay attention to. If you go to the doctor, really, for the most part, the only time your uric acid levels are going to be checked is if you complain about pain in your toe.
Are there any connections to certain health problems or health diseases or possible medications we're using? Can any of them or those situations affect uric acid levels?
Yeah, actually, a very common drug can affect uric acid, and that's just aspirin. And so you think about all the individuals that are taking a baby aspirin every day because that's good for the cardiovascular system, so they're told. But yet that aspirin will increase your uric acid levels. And that's probably, in my opinion, maybe the most dangerous connection is uric acid and cardiovascular health. If you look at people with high blood pressure, 90% of those individuals also have high uric acid. And so let's think about like what's happening in the body here is I think the uric acid comes first. So uric acid levels are elevated. When uric acid levels are high, we know that crystallizes. Those crystals are not just in our joints, but those crystals are in our bloodstream and they damage that fragile inner lining of our veins and arteries, right? The epithelial lining. So once that becomes damaged, that's going to have an impact on nitric oxide production. Like we can, like, there's a whole cascade of things that happen here. So nitric oxide is produced by that same epithelium lining. And so if that's damaged, that's going to have an impact on not just blood pressure, but hey, fellas, pay attention, erectile dysfunction, other issues going on. So let's just say that that's the process that's starting. And now we have cardiovascular issues and so forth. If we then go back and I'll say fix the uric acid, there is still damage in that inner lining of the veins and arteries. And that's why I think it's important that we monitor our uric acid levels for prevention's sake, not just, hey, I've got gout and now I need to start paying attention. So I think it's one of those warning signs in the body that can talk about what might be coming down the road for you. And if we deal with it early on, then we don't have to worry about the real serious issues later on and the long-term recovery that might have to take place if, that epithelium lining of my veins and arteries is already damaged.
Is weight an issue?
Weight is an issue there, but I think predominantly because, and again, this may not be true 100% of the time, but what we're going to see with weight is generally individuals that are not exercising as much as they should. So that's part of it. And exercise comes with circulation, right? So I want good circulation in order to help my body get rid of toxins. And part of that is eliminating that uric acid when it gets high. The other part with weight is the fact that that individual is probably consuming too much sugar. And so it's not the weight is the problem. It's the things that are causing the weight that are the problem. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No. That really kind of dives in. And, and I'm thinking to myself, I want people to understand that hydration, of course, is an amazing thing we need to be doing, but just drinking a lot of water does not wash out the gout crystals.
That's right. Now, I mean, if we're not drinking enough, by all means, that is part of the problem. Mm-hmm. But drinking more is not purely just going to wash crystals out and then I'm better. But it is interesting. I've met people that say, hey, I've had gout and I drink water and I'm fine. I'm like, you were probably hyper dehydrated. But yeah, their levels are probably still elevated. Maybe just their gout symptom might have gone away, but there's other stuff going on with that person for sure.
Well, the thing I like about your book is it's very much a tell-all. It's very easy to read through. You find yourself shaking your head when you're reading because you identify with things that you're saying because you've made them easy to comprehend. But also it's a way where when you finish like a chapter, you finish a portion, you're just like, all right, well, now some of this stuff is really making sense. And they put themselves into the book. It's kind of like reading a really good, I don't know, reading The Lord of the Rings or something like that. And you're inside the book and you're like, okay, I'm here. I'm seeing what's going on. I can really identify a lot better. But gout is something we don't talk enough about. And to your earlier point, many of the most of the verbiage and most of the telltale talk out there is not leading us true. So this is why this is going to be a very well accepted book. And one that I'm going to recommend because it's easy for us to put ourselves into the conversation that you're giving us in the book. And I hope people will walk away with those aha moments and some things that they may have been, confused about in their head. They're going to get clarity because what I want is people to get it under control. I mean, you can still be told that you have gout. You can still be told that you have higher uric acid, but you need to get healthy around it and get it managed and get it under control. It's like inflammation. We don't want inflammation to go away. Right. We want it managed.
Right.
So it's the same kind of thing with this as well. Do me a favor. And this is important. This was her second part of her question. Where do I start with my nutrition? I would like you to talk a little bit about the nutrition that's important, maybe our foundational nutrition that will also benefit this. And then I would love you to zero in on your gout formula from Red Remedies because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. So diet-wise, and by the way, one of the things that I provide for anybody that buys the book, we've got a handful of free downloads. Mm-hmm. And one of those is a quick guide because I recognize that the person buying this book probably is somebody in pain right now. And so even reading the book might take too long. So, there's a quick one-page download. And on that, there are some very basic diet recommendations. And I do start with water because we have to start there. And I find that most people are dehydrated. So by all means, let's make sure that we're hydrating enough. And one of the ways that I like to do that is I put a glass of water on my nightstand when I go to bed. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I drink a glass of water. It doesn't need to be 30 ounces in the morning. If 8 or 10 ounces is all that feels good to you, by all means, start there. My glass of water is 12 or 16 ounces, but that's my start for the day. And then make sure that you're consistent with that throughout the day. But other diet things that are easier to do is I say during this period where your levels are high, reduce red meat. I'm not saying cut it out. So if you just make sure that maybe a couple of times a week at most that we have some red meat. It's easier to cut out fish and shellfish. So all shellfish, put that aside. That certainly elevates uric acid levels very quickly. In the book, I've got a list of the other fish that are important to put aside. And I find that those are easier things to put away for a while. And again, not forever, but put them away for a while in order that things are under control. The other thing absolutely to cut out would be beer, and anything that is high in yeast. So yeast, when it breaks down in the body, raises uric acid levels very quickly. So, other alcohols are also important to reduce. And I would say as much as possible, eliminate during this period. Even if an alcohol that you're consuming may not directly impact uric acid, all alcohol is going to have an impact in your kidneys. And the kidneys are responsible for 70% of uric acid elimination. So I want to take care of our kidneys. And so, and then the other diet recommendation is absolutely sugar. That's really at the top of the list. Look at everything that you're consuming and as much as possible, eliminate sugar. So certainly sodas and things like that. Actually, the statistic, I don't have it in my head, but it is something like you consume two cans of soda a day, and the uric acid levels will increase like exponentially. And so I know there's a lot of individuals that are consuming far more than that a day. So reduce your sugar intake. And that's absolutely the place to start. The other quick thing that I tell people, if you're not moving your body, if you're not exercising, and I realize sometimes in this case, it can be really hard to do that, but we want to try to make sure that we're moving our muscles. Our muscles move the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is how we get toxins out of the body. And the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like the cardiovascular system does with our heart, right? And so anything we can do to move our body, to move lymph, to get toxins out. And so if you can't, get up and go for a brisk walk, and all you can do is sit in the chair, move your arms. I mean, just like pump your muscles, whatever you can do just to get the lymphatic system moving a little bit. That will make a profound impact, not just on uric acid levels, but overall health. So those are some of the things that we can do, just diet and lifestyle wise, that people may or may not be doing.
So I guess this is from my own knowledge. Vegans and vegetarians, better chance of not getting raised uric acid?
They have a better chance. There are some foods like asparagus and beans and legumes that that are high in a protein called purines, but those purines, honestly, they don't convert as efficiently to uric acid as purines in like beer, sugar, red meat, seafood do. And so it's not nearly as common to see a vegan or a vegetarian that has high uric acid levels. And when I do see those individuals, it's almost always because of kidney function, digestion. So I said 70% of uric acid is eliminated for the kidneys. The other 30% is eliminated through the digestive system. So how many of us today have a problem with constipation, right?
Huge.
And so that's another big issue that we see. So we've got to make sure we have healthy kidneys, healthy digestion. When we do that, your body has a much greater capacity to eliminate uric acid levels more efficiently.
Well, and I have to add one more category to that. There's vegans, there's vegetarians, and there's also that other group out there that I call carbo-sugitarians. And they'll call themselves a vegetarian, but they're basically a carbitarian because they eat nothing but carbs and tons of sugar, but they will tell you that they eat no animal products. I get it, but that's not healthy because that's more sugar.
That's the vegetarian or vegan that's eating all of the meat alternatives, right?
Yes.
And carbs and chips and things like that. They're not eating out of the produce departments.
No. So we know that, let's say, eating more of a plant-based diet is going to be much healthier. So you go to the health food store, you go to your stores, they're standing there and, obviously they're trying to decide what to do. Is it a good idea for a good enzyme and a probiotic? Is it a good idea for a good multiple vitamin? Where do we start the gout uric acid crowd?
Yeah, and honestly, I don't start with any of those basics for this, although a probiotic won't hurt. But the main reason that these individuals have digestive issues. And actually, I would argue the main reason that most of us have digestive issues is simply because of stress on the body.
Yeah.
So what happens when our body is under stress, right? Our body goes through a very natural process of essentially shutting down digestion, because during a stress response, we don't need the digestive system to function, right? Because it's stress that we're under. We're supposed to go survive that experience. The problem is, for most of us, we go from one stress experience to another, to another, to another, right? And we're stressed and angry while we're eating, and that's not going to work. So we need to modulate the stress response. So the first place that I go is adaptogens. I use an adaptogen in our gout formula called astragalus, but I look to an adaptogen. And the reason I do that is an adaptogen will give your kidneys further capacity to function well, and they're going to make sure that the digestive system functions healthy and normal. And so maybe another way to say this is, if you go through a very traumatic stress experience on Monday, on Friday, your entire microbiome will be different. And so if your solution is just to take a probiotic and we haven't dealt with the stress, your microbiome is never going to be corrected unless you stay on that probiotic. So, and don't hear me say probiotics are bad. I love probiotics. They're wonderful. So use that, okay? But let's make sure that we go a step further back and deal with that stress response in order to help our digestive system kind of kick back into the gear that it ought to be in naturally.
It's almost like getting a clean canvas, if you will, and putting everything in balance, and then bringing out the colors and doing the painting after you're balanced.
Absolutely right. Yes.
I do love your formula, though. I've recommended it over the years, and talk a little bit about it. Gout.
Yeah, so let's just stick with the kidney topic here for a moment, because the
Please.
kidneys are the most important thing to pay attention to. So I talked about astragalus as an adaptogen that has a really positive impact on kidney function. But then there's another herb I use. It's an Indian or an Ayurvedic herb called borhavia. And borhavia is a nutritive herb. You might classify it as a nutritive diuretic. What we want to do is we want to make sure that the kidneys have the food and the nourishment they need to do the job that they were created to do. On the opposite side of that, what I don't want to do is stimulate the kidneys. And this is what I find is done quite commonly in our industry, is we use stimulant diuretics in order to help flush that uric acid out of the body. And yes, to a degree, it will do that in the first couple of days. But there's actually studies that show that diuretics, whether they're herbal diuretics or drug diuretics, will have a net negative impact, not just on the kidneys, but they'll actually raise uric acid levels over time. So I do not use herbs like a celery seed extract. Borhavia, along with astragalus, are going to have a really powerful impact on helping your kidneys do what they are designed to do, instead of doing it for the kidneys, if that makes sense.
It does. And I have a really, really good friend that had some really terrible levels of uric acid and gout, and he did change his diet. And he was working with Marge, and she put him on a decent basic program. But she said, "I'm not overloading you." She goes, we need to put out the fire first and bring you back in balance. And he was on that for probably about 2 weeks. And I remember he called me and came in the store, and he says, "I can't believe this. This is like, I have completely turned the hands." And it was amazing. And to see such a huge metamorphosis for someone that was suffering so badly, because he also had the symptoms of it as well, in the toes and all that stuff. So it's a wonderful formula. So I never asked him if he stayed on it. Do you stay on it, or do you use it cyclically?
Yeah, great question. So, and the answer is, it depends. Like so many answers.
Of course.
But it really just simply depends on, first of all, if you don't test your uric acid levels, I recommend that you test them. And that will give you a clear answer as to whether you should stay on the formula or not. One of the main reasons, of course, that we formulate a formula to help your body do what it's supposed to is, I know that individuals with high uric acid and that really struggle with gout, they need a product that they can stay on if they need that. Some individuals may need to be on that formula for a long period of time. And so gout is very safe to be able to do that, especially if you get regular flare-ups. I say stay on that 2 capsule a day maintenance dose as long as you need to, until things never come back and you get your levels tested and things are back down to normal. And then by all means, you're welcome to quit. It's not a product that you're going to be addicted to or habit forming for the rest of your life. At the same time, if you're an individual who gets one flare up a year and that's it, just use Gouts during that flare up. And I say, stay on it, 30, maybe 45 days after all symptoms are gone. And the reason for that is there is very good research that shows that even though symptoms are gone, uric acid levels can stay elevated in the body anywhere between 1 and 3 months before they come down all the way back down to normal. And that makes sense, right? Our bodies are not going to just take a U-turn immediately, even though symptomatically it can feel like that. Like we can help individuals that are really struggling today and a lot of pain. And in a couple of days, they're going to feel worlds different. That doesn't mean their body is back into alignment, right? So I say, stay on that maintenance dose 30, 45 days. And then, hey, if you haven't had a flare up, besides the one you just had in a year, put the product in the cabinet, wait till next time. Or maybe as we step into the holidays here, at least as we're starting to record this episode, there's individuals that might want to go on that maintenance dose the week leading up to Thanksgiving and the week leading up to Christmas and New Year's, just to make sure that we have a really wonderful holiday. So that's my gift to you. Okay.
That's a wonderful gift, and there's a lot of reality and truth to that, because you know how we are. We're all human. We all love food. Everybody says, well, I'm a foodie. I'm like, you know what? We're all foodies.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're good at it
right.
or eating what we should be eating, but we're all foodies. So, I love this because this is a way of really being able to kind of spell this out to people effectively and let them realize. Like I had a friend that he has really bad arthritis, and he's got the arthritis pretty much under control, but it was always his feet. And I happened to go visit him one day, and he was wearing like flip-flops. And I looked down and I said, have you had your uric acid? His toes were bright red, and he was having a hard time walking. I said, I'm not going to diagnose this, but that's gout. Yes. And he went to his doctor. His uric acid was off the charts. And so he sat with me, and I worked on his diet, really cleaned it up. I took all the things away that he had to take away, at least temporarily. And I recommended he went and got the gout, was on it for a period of a couple of weeks. He said the red came out of his toes. The symptoms just diminished dramatically. He went into the doctor like about 60 to 90 days later, and his uric acid levels were so far down, and he became a water drinker because he never was. He used to drink like a case of Pepsi every day. But he really did clean it up. And once it gave him such a wonderful way of feeling, and he didn't have to live that way anymore, it wasn't hard for him to make the changes.
Absolutely. And that's what we see is, our bodies sometimes just need that extra nourishment. And that's what herbs are for, right? Herbs have an unbelievable ability to kind of go in and help nourish things back to health. And then our bodies oftentimes, if we make the proper adjustments that are needed in our daily lifestyle, right? Our bodies can oftentimes handle it from there. So that's exactly how, Gouch is designed, and it's been fun to help so many people along the way.
Well, I want to thank you for this book. I think this book is amazing. I think it's a must-have for anybody's library if they're looking for something to give them, some answers and maybe some clarity, because I think it's well written and it's not overwhelming. And that to me is very important because, sometimes when books are just too technical and too overwhelming, people just like, I have no time for this. But if we make it understandable and they can kind of insert themselves into it, see themselves where all this is coming from, I think the results are a lot better. Where do people order the book, and how do people find you?
Yeah, so you can just go to thegoutlie.com, or you can type it into Amazon. So it's there. You can buy the physical book. You can do the Audible. Or you can do the Kindle on Amazon. So it'll be found wherever you buy books these days. Certainly in a handful of health food stores around the country. And I say a handful because I know health food stores, we don't sell that many books today like we used to. But most of our retail partners are going to have some copies of the Gout Lie on hand as well. And you can follow me at I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can follow me at danchapman.wellness on either one of those platforms, or of course, reach out to us at Red Remedies. That's REDD remedies.com.
I love it. I want to thank you so much for being here today. I have two questions for you, and you know I'm going to give these to you. The first one is leave us with a thought of the day.
My thought of the day is really part of the inspiration. Actually, I'm going to pull it up. I want to read this because this is inspiration from my mother. Okay.
I love it.
So from my mom to you all, I had the most incredible mother anybody could ever have in the world. And it's my mom that I dedicated this book to. And so I said, to my mom, who instilled in me the importance of healthy food, the power of healing herbs, and the understanding that our bodies have a remarkable capacity to heal. And that's what I want you to hear today is if you're somebody who's been struggling, whether it's gout or any other health issue, I want you to hear that your body has the capacity to heal. So do not give up. There is an answer for you. You just have to keep looking for it. It's there.
Second question. This is a new one. If you were to leave the planet today, what would you want to be most remembered for?
My quick answer for that is a man who loved his family, loved his friends, and loved the Lord. That's what I would want to be remembered for.
And with that, I can't add anything to that. I love it. First of all, will you come back and see me again?
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah,
I'd
it's
love
always
it.
good to spend time with you.
I really appreciate that. I hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as I have. My interview today and my conversation with Dan Chapman. Make sure you pick up that book, The Gout Lie. Add it to your library. It'll be a great plus. It'll be a great gift for someone you know that's been suffering and maybe have been a little bit, not paying attention. Let's let them know how much we love them and how much they mean to us. Get them a copy of the book and let them insert themselves into the narrative and walk out the other side feeling better. Remember to go to my YouTube channel, of course, Honest Health, and like it, subscribe so we can really increase the visibility of these absolutely incredible, groundbreaking guests that I'm so privileged to have here. And I thank you all for tuning in today. Dan, thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Jeffrey.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.